Well, ladies and
Oh
gentlemen, if you
boy.
saw us earlier, we were talking about, our normal um, regular show. We had episode 28, but we thought during, pay-per-views, we changed it up. So, welcome to pay-per-view special number one of No Final Bell here, where we will talk about sacrifice, and no, we are not getting any Steiner math this time. Um, thought I would add it.
However, the numbers don't lie.
They don't lie.
And they spelled disaster for Samoa Joe this
This
Sunday
Sunday
at
at
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice, but except it wasn't Sunday. It wasn't. It was not Sunday. It was
It was
Saturday.
Saturday.
But we are going to go into the sacrifice talks before we
Yes.
go into what a crazy, night of revolution it was.
Yes. So, first we have the countdown to Sacrifice. There were two matches that happened. First off, we have Lady Frost and Giselle Shaw. Lady Frost beats Giselle Shaw, hands her her first win. And then we have Rich Swann and Willie Mack versus Honor No More's Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, aka the OGK. Rich Swann and Willie Mack beat them. And then we open Sacrifice with the X Division Championship match. And unfortunately, it seems as though Jake Something's time with the company has come to an end. He is a free agent now, and this past Saturday at Sacrifice, he could not get the job done against Trey Miguel. And I was here first thing saying that Jake Something could become a future X Division champion and eventually cash in option C, but that appears to not be the case. Jake Something,
Could he very well end up being in? I mean, because there are a couple new. Well, I mean, ROH is eventually going to be back
yes,
up next month, so there's a possibility he could go to ROH and show up here and there in AEW, which I kind of do like the idea that if ROH does end up becoming the developmental type of territory for AEW, it could very well be possible. But don't be shocked that a lot of the big names that used. I mean, then again, a lot of the big names are kind of out. So honestly,
yeah,
it becoming a developmental territory for AEW would make a lot more sense.
it would probably be better for Ring of Honor anyways to
Yeah, I
be,
think so too.
but
Um,
we'll have to wait and see.
we'll
I
have
mean,
to see because it could help develop them to become those really big professional wrestling
yeah.
stars heading into AEW and show
Now,
here.
granted, the champions of the brand are already pretty much established, and
Right.
even then, like you can't really do much in terms of like moving them to a different.
Or the only other possibility I could think of is Adam Scher and EC3's new company
Oh
that they're
yes,
starting
control
up.
your narrative.
So I think that could be a very big possibility. I just don't think that he's going to go to like AEW in itself because honestly,
Who's to say he couldn't end up in MLW or NWA or even New Japan? There's many different options that Jake Something has, but regardless, Trey Miguel still your X Division champion after Sacrifice.
mm-hmm.
And then we get to Eddie Edwards and Rhino, as Rhino requested the match. So, but surprisingly, Eddie Edwards beats Rhino with the help of Steve Macklin. Now, don't get it twisted, though. Don't get it twisted. Steve Macklin is not a part of Honor No More, but he's also not a part of Impact Wrestling, Team Impact anymore. He's still a part of Impact Wrestling. He's just not a part of Team Impact. So, and even then, Steve Macklin fights alongside nobody. He is only in it for himself. So,
Sometimes that's what you gotta do. Just be in it for yourself.
yep. Yeah, I mean, but regardless, Eddie Edwards gets the victory over Rhino. Then we have the Knockouts Tag Team Championships on the line as the Influence face off against the Inspiration, a match that was supposed to happen all the way back in January at Hard to Kill. Unfortunately, had to be pushed back to Sacrifice because of the Inspiration being held back due to COVID protocols. But regardless, The match has happened at Sacrifice, and now we have new Knockouts Tag Team Champions. The Influence got the job done, and it's all thanks to Caleb with a K. You questioned his allegiance. You questioned where his allegiance lied with with the influence and the inspiration, but shockingly enough, too, the influence told Caleb to stay backstage, but Caleb could not help himself. He was concerned for the safety of Madison Rayne and Tennille Dashwood. Next thing you know, he has, I believe, the Knockouts Tag Team title, throws it into the ring, and people were questioning, oh, did he mean to throw it at Tennille? Did he mean to throw it at. Either way, it worked out in the Influence's favor. They are your new Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Now, this one is a bit of an interesting one. It was more of a segment than an actual, and the fact that it happened on a pay-per-view is kind of interesting. We had Brian Myers down at ringside. He was going to provide extra commentary for something, but next thing you know, W. Morrissey comes down. He wants to get his hands on Brian Myers. He is not done with Brian Myers. So then he was going to put Brian, it seemed like he was going to put Brian Myers through his announcer's table, but instead, Brian Myers weasels his way out, and security comes down to stop the two men, but W. Morrissey is like, no, screw that noise. Somebody's going through a table. I don't care if it's a security guard or Brian Myers. And W. Morrissey puts the security guard through a table. Next up, we get the Battle of the Hosses at Sacrifice. Jonah versus PCO of Honor No More. And man, it was a battle of wits between the two men. They threw everything at each other, but in the end, Jonah was able to overcome the pure creation one that is PCO. The man that is not human. Jonah beats PCO. Next up, we have a match that, oh my god, I can't even begin to describe. This match absolutely lived up to expectations, and I knew it was going to from the moment it got announced. Jay White and Alex Shelley, what a freaking match. There were so many false finishes that I thought, like, for sure Alex Shelley was going to get the victory. But ultimately, the winner was Jay White. However, there was one point in the match where Alex Shelley hit the Blade Runner on Jay White himself, and you thought Alex Shelley was going to get the victory over Jay White with his own finisher, but no. Regardless, the match was amazing, did not disappoint. Next up, we have the Champ Challenge of Deonna Purrazzo. Chelsea Green comes out to answer for the Ring of Honor World Women's Championship, but is unsuccessful. And before I go on, prayers to Chelsea Green. Hopefully she has a speedy recovery, as she did unfortunately re-injure her left wrist once again. You hate to see it. You really do. And even then, like, a lot of people thought it was part of the show that, like, oh yeah, she gets herself intentionally injured as part of the show to throw off Mickie James heading into her match. But no, this was a legit injury. She has gone to the hospital. She has gotten an x-ray. It has been rebroken. But regardless, prayers to Chelsea Green for a speedy recovery. And speaking of throwing off Mickie James in her match, they went straight into, after Chelsea Green had her little thing and her being tended to on the outside by medical staff and referees, Mickie James went out to check on her. Tasha Steelz wasted no time, got right out there, wanted to challenge. She earned her challenge, and even then, Tasha Steelz was wasting no time. She did not care if Mickie James was off of her mental game for the match. She was going to pounce on that opportunity to take the Knockout Women's World Championship from Mickie James, and she did. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new Knockout World Champion in Tasha Steelz.
Crazy.
The first Afro-Latina Knockouts champion, Tasha Steelz. So, yes, Tasha Steelz beats Mickie James to become the new Knockouts World Champion. That's the second title change that's happened in the span of this whole pay-per-view, and we're not even done. Next is the Impact Tag Team title match between Violent by Design and the Good Brothers. Violent by Design has been adamant in wanting to recapture the Impact Tag Team titles after Rhino essentially could not get the job done against the Good Brothers at about Slammiversary last year. So Violent by Design had to do what was best for the brand overall with Violent by Design, kicked Rhino out, and worked hard to get back into title contention for those tag team titles. And now, also, let's not fail to mention that the Good Brothers have been kind of tied up with Bullet Club as of late. So, who's to say that might have thrown the Good Brothers off? And I kind of think it did because, ladies and gentlemen, we have new Impact Tag Team Champions in Violent by Design. And the two men that came out to represent Violent by Design in the match, I believe, were Eric Young and Diener. If not Diener and Joe Doring. Or even maybe, who's to say they won't implement Freebird rules with this tag team title reign? Who's to say they won't implement Freebird rules? But regardless, Violent by Design are your new Impact Tag Team Champions. And ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the main event of Sacrifice. Moose versus Heath. Will Heath get the job done? Will he finally capture the big one? Will he finally become the Impact World Champion? Unfortunately, no. Even with Heath's friend, former WWE superstar Santino Marella, Anthony Corelli, on commentary, Heath does not get the job done. And Moose still your Impact World Champion. But the pay-per-view, the show, is not over. Who comes down after the match and seemingly announces that he is re-signed with Impact Wrestling? Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander is back in Impact Wrestling. He beats down Moose and seemingly confirms he's back with Impact Wrestling. He has signed a multi-year deal, and he makes it official for Rebellion between himself and Moose for the world title.
Crazy.
Needless to say, Moose's time as the Impact World Champion is going to come to an end.
I honestly think that because of everything that's happened, that was the main reason why Josh Alexander had a short run, is because they knew that
his contract was coming
up and his visa was... I think the whole visa thing is a little stupid because...
Well, I mean, granted, he had really no choice in the matter. You know, once your contract expires, then essentially so does your work visa, because he was in the company Impact Wrestling for 3 years, and he's not honestly, natively a citizen of the United States. I'm hoping this is
like a multi-year contract, could be like very well a 4 or 5 year contract. So I'm glad that he was able to sign a multi-year deal.
It is a little unfortunate though that he couldn't go join his compatriot in Ethan Page over at AEW, but
honestly, it's all right. He's brown nosing up Dan Lambert's ass. So it's all right. He can do that all the time over at AEW. Yes, it would be nice to see the North being in AEW, but honestly,
But regardless, Josh Alexander is going to do big is there to stay in Impact Wrestling to do bigger and better things than he probably ever would do in AEW. Because let's face it, he would probably just be a glorified tag team guy, which is not a bad thing, and
right,
it's not a knock against Josh Alexander as a competitor. Like, let's face it, him and Ethan Page were quite possibly one of the greatest tag teams that Impact Wrestling has ever produced. But regardless, Josh Alexander is set out to become an even bigger singles competitor.
right,
Like, he doesn't want to be left in the shadows of just being known as mainly a tag team guy. He's gone away from being a tag team, being merely known as a tag team guy. He's out now to make his own mark in professional wrestling, in Impact Wrestling. He's out to once again reclaim the Impact World Championship, the Impact World Championship that was stolen from him by Moose.
yeah, it was. Well, we're gonna go into Revolution. The main reason why we did this pay-per-view special for.
They
Well,
stacked that card.
yes, they did, and it all starts with the buy-in. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they did start off the night in a surprise move. Layla Hirsch actually beats Chris Statlander. I was shocked. I thought it was going to be Chris Statlander all along, because Chris Statlander, before the pay-per-view started, vowed that we would all see a different side of her. Well, apparently that wasn't enough to get her the win. So, congrats to Layla Hirsch. I don't know exactly how she beat Chris Statlander, because before, when we got to watch the buy-in, it was already done and over with. But we did get to see the last two matches. QT does come out, Hook versus QT. QT comes out and says he vows he will show Hook how cold-hearted he can be. Well, I hate to say it, Hook is the, cold-blooded killer for a reason. So he goes out there, and this is the longest match that Hook has ever wrestled. QT was showcasing why, the veteran looks better than the student himself. QT, there was some moments where I thought QT might have had the edge over Hook, and there was multiple times where he did. But Hook is a hell of a lot younger than QT is.
Yeah.
By at least over 10 years. Because, you're talking about 22 to maybe 30, let's say 35, 36 maybe. Maybe even older than that. Who the hell knows? So, Hook beats the student beats the teacher. He taps him out with
the red
rum.
Which, by the way, I'd like to call gimmick infringement, because I'm pretty sure Vincent had the red rum first before Hook. So.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, they had to call it something different than a Taz mission. So, but yes, beats him with the Taz mission and makes him shut up. I hate to say it, QT, but Hook is undefeated for a reason. He gets his first pay-per-view victory. Congrats, Hook. You're finally heading into the mainstream in the wrestling company, in the business, if you want to say. So, congrats, Hook. Definitely probably made Taz happy, but we'll talk about that, a little bit later in the show. I'm sure he wasn't happy about the result of said match later in the card, but here comes a match that very well should have been on the main card. I hate to say it, because he had a couple matches on the main show that could have very well have been on the buy-in. TBS title match. The TBS title match should have been on the buy-in. I hate to say it. I mean, nothing against. I'm not discrediting Jade Cargill and Taye Kante, but those two women should have. The TBS title is still relatively a new title, and I don't think it's big enough to put it automatically to the main show. So I think it should have been on a buy-in. That's just me. I get it. Jade Cargill is undefeated, and you really shouldn't put the undefeated star on the buy-in. I understand that, but in a sense, like, it's a brand new title. You probably should have put the brand new title on the buy-in. Because I hate to say it, this six-man tag team match was very back and forth. There was a lot of, not really a lot of false finishes, but there was some false finishes. You thought, oh, maybe Death Triangle actually has it. You thought for moments, and then the House of Black's looking really good. Well, hate to say it, everybody, the House of Black actually beats Death Triangle and Eric Redbeard, formerly known as Eric
Big Red
Rowan.
Eric Rowan.
And it's kind of funny because on the show they accidentally said Eric Rowan, and he's like, "Oh, excuse me, I meant Eric Redbeard." So, but I tell you, man, this match had a lot of anticipation. It should have been on the main card over the trios tag team match. Nothing against it. It was that. Don't get me wrong. That match was really, really good. There were some great moments in that match, and we will talk about it later. I don't want to spoil it right now. But man, this match, very highly anticipated, very back and forth, very hard hitting. Is this the last time we've seen of the House of Black and Death Triangle? Because I'm going to say a big fat no.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I think it's going to lead into Double or Nothing. And honestly, speedy recovery to Rey Fenix. I really hope that he can come back 100% and stay healthy this time. Please, for the love of God, the last few times you've been, coming back, you've gotten injured again. Please, for the love of God, I get it. You're a luchador. You do some crazy shit. Please, for the love of God, stay healthy, because Death Triangle has a lot of promise to it. But if you keep on getting hurt, Tony Khan could very well just be like, well, I hate to say it,
you're too much of a liability.
You're too much of a liability, and we're going to have to get rid of you. But I'm hoping, honestly, this is a showing that Eric Redbeard is officially All Elite. We haven't gotten that signed. So I'm thinking it's just a one-off appearance, just so then they can further the storyline. I think this is just a one-off to further the storyline between both factions for the meantime until Rey Fenix comes back, which should be very, very soon. If not this week, possibly St. Patrick's Day Slam, that Dynamite. So we'll have to see. Keep tuned into Dynamite later tonight, if not next week. I'm sure Rey Fenix will come back and further the storyline between Death Triangle and the House of Black. Because right now, honestly, it's great storytelling. Really good storytelling.
Yeah.
This has got a lot of good promise, honestly. And I never would have thought I would say that about two factions like that, but man, this has a lot of upside to it. Yeah, well, who knows? Going forward, we get into the actual main show. We start off with Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho in a match where we were right about the predictions, but man, these two men, I honestly thought it was going to be a dogfight. I was kind of disappointed.
Well,
I mean, don't get me wrong, they were beating each other up, and Eddie Kingston looked good. Chris Jericho looked good. Both men just brought their all into the match.
Although the way it started was a bit like...
Yes.
Because
I hate to say
Kingston
Eddie
dropped Chris Jericho right on the top of his head.
And dazed and confused him big time afterwards in front of his own family. That's ballsy. You did it right in front of the Irvine family, which is Chris's real last name. And Eddie, I like you as a wrestler, but man, I know you have a hell of a lot of heat in the wrestling world, but man, that's not the way you start the match. Don't get me wrong, Chris Jericho did definitely get his due and dropped Eddie on his head a couple of different times in the match. But can we talk for a second? Chris, can you stop doing the line salt, for God's sakes? Man, I get it, you're over 50 years old, but my God. that line still gets worse and worse every single freaking time you do it, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, yes. Thank you for outside source. Yes, he kind of is a fat ass. Don't get me wrong, but you've done that move for over, I'm pretty sure over 30 years, if not 20 years. He's been doing that move for a really, really long time, since at least his WCW, WWE days. But Chris, probably time to get it out of your arsenal.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. Even the Code Breaker, which I'm sure is a different name in the AEW because of copyright. But the Code Breaker is even looked a little bad. I will say, I think there was a few times in that Code Breaker he actually stiff kneed him into the eye, because that eye looked
It did look very puffy.
a little puffy and bad there. So I want to say Chris Jericho legit got his knee into his eye there. So Chris, don't get me wrong, he worked a little stiff and Eddie worked a little stiff. It was meant to happen because both men had some legit heat on each other heading into that match. But if honestly, I mean, but yes, Eddie Kingston finally got over the hump and won the big one. He won his first pay-per-view match in AEW, and he finally beat Chris Jericho. But Chris Jericho says, well, if you beat me, I'll shake your hand. Eddie Kingston's like, shake my hand. Chris Jericho is like, nope.
Haven't earned my respect yet.
You haven't earned your respect yet. So, the real question is this showing a heel side to Chris Jericho? Has Eddie finally officially gone face? Like he says that he would be a great face? Has Chris Jericho officially turned heel again?
Well, I don't know. We'll have to see how this plays out, but for now, I would say yes, that it led to the premature face turn of Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, I would definitely think so. I mean, Eddie Kingston definitely showed that he can finally do it. He wasn't afraid of going in there, but I guess also the real question after this match is Eddie Kingston proven, now that he's beaten Chris Jericho, that he could eventually win a title in AEW? I mean, it would be nice to see. I think that he could very well be a champion, but as far as if it's a singles or a tag team title, I guess we'll find out. But because honestly, if there's no upside to this, then having him win against Chris Jericho would have made absolutely no sense. So I'm hoping there's a buy off with this, because if there's not, then I look at it as like, so you just literally gave him the win just to give him the win. So
Yeah,
to say
I hope that there's a giant payoff.
I'm hoping so too. So congratulations, Eddie Kingston. We did choose that as our prediction that Eddie Kingston would win. I thought, honestly, I really did think that Pride and Powerful were going to get involved.
Nowhere to be seen.
Nobody from the Inner Circle or Pride and Powerful were anywhere close to this match. Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho were just by themselves and had that match. And Eddie Kingston won clean, which I was quite shocked, honestly. But going forward, sign the pay-per-view, so we will do that for any of these pay-per-view specials. The sign of the pay-per-view I saw was Bucks 5 stars, would have gotten 6 if it was in the Tokyo Dome. Probably truthful, but honestly, that match was still really, really, really good. I mean, there was a lot of false finishes. You thought for a second that either one of those tag teams were going to win. Our prediction was for Red Dragon to win the tag team titles to set up a AEW World Tag Team title feud with Young Bucks. But, there's always a but. Doesn't mean that there's still not some friction between Red Dragon and Young Bucks. We thought, okay, Jurassic Express are going up against both tag teams. Red Dragon and Young Bucks are working together, to see if they can, either one of those tag teams would win, type of thing. Well, then there was some moments where, hey, what are you doing, man? I thought we had an agreement here. There were some tensions that were flying between both tag teams. They were thinking more about themselves than as the faction.
Yeah.
We've been seeing this brewing for weeks and weeks and weeks that, Red Dragon and the Young Bucks just didn't see eye to eye. Adam Cole was in the middle, like, hey man, you guys gotta get this, settled. I don't want to be in the middle of it type of thing. Um, I still think that there's going to be some tensions, and we'll talk about that main event a little bit later. I'm kind of a little disappointed that, you know, it didn't lead to the other way there because I really did think that it was going to be, Adam Cole and Fred Dragon as champs going up against the Young Bucks and, eventually returning Kenny Omega to get the title, but fortunately that's not what happened. So, to a big shock, Jurassic Express actually retained their titles.
Yeah.
Wow, I am honestly shocked and awed that they decided to have the Jurassic Express retain their tag team titles. Because now I'm thinking it's like, who's next for them to lose the tag team titles? Oh, wait. Isn't there a big name free agent that's soon going to be able to compete somewhere else? Could be Jeff Hardy, and it could set up a Hardys versus Jurassic Express match at Double or Nothing. We'll happen to see. I mean, of course, we're in the year 2022,
At this point, there have been way too many
and we'll talk
WWE
about
releases that you just, you know,
some of those debuts that did happen, but um, because this also goes into the thing. After seeing what you saw with the tensions flying between Red Dragon and Young Bucks, will it lead to them going up against each other at Double or Nothing? Will this lead into a long term or short term feud heading into the next pay per view?
absolutely. I mean, why else would you have like tensions between the two sides of like Red Dragon and the Young Bucks if there wasn't going to be an ultimate payoff of the two men, or not the two men, the two teams
Hmm.
ultimately facing each other at either the pay per view or maybe on a dynamite. Like, why else would you have the two sides colliding and like
Oh, I know.
butting heads?
Exactly, exactly. I really do think that Jurassic Express, is looking very, really good as a tag team as of late. They deserve to be the tag team champions right now. They fought hard for many years. For 3 years, they are AEW originals.
Yes,
They've been in the company since the beginning, and honestly, they deserve this. They've worked their asses off. They didn't, go to company and, kiss up the ass. They worked hard to get to this moment to be the tag team champions right now. We've talked about it you know, for a few years, even a few different times when they had opportunities for the tag team titles here on this show, that they deserve the tag team titles, and they keep on getting screwed out. They got so close, so close, so close. Hey, they finally did it, and now they're still champions and beat two of the best tag teams out there right
yeah,
now. And the Young Bucks and Red Dragon really solidified themselves. But I hate to say it, there is still that one tag team that will be out there, and their names are the Hardys, and they are the collectors of gold.
yes. They are going to go on a new
Expedition
expedition of
gold.
gold.
And there's one set of tag team titles they have never won before, and that is the AEW tag team titles. So I honestly think that's what's going to probably be the plan. As far as how they're going to set that up, gotta watch AEW.
Well, who's to say that when they face the Briscoes in that indie appearance that they couldn't possibly be looking to capture the GCW tag team titles? Because as far as I know, the Briscoes are still the GCW tag team champions.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the last expedition of gold because it's rumored that this is supposed to be the final run of the Hardys,
Hmm.
is what I saw. So I don't know how truthful that is, but if it is supposedly the last run of the Hardys, I hope they go down and, you know, I hope their last stop is in the AEW and winning the AEW World Tag Team title. So I'm hoping that's going to be the plan. And if this is officially the last run of the Hardys, man, they have had one hell of a run. They are, leading up to be like the Dudleys.
Yes, absolutely.
Honestly, they are getting to that level of the Dudleys, and the Dudleys are WWE Hall of Famers, and
Yeah.
rightfully so. That the Hardys will eventually be WWE Hall of Famers, just not right now. Even though Jeff Hardy did get offered to be inducted into the WWE Hall of
But it
Fame,
was only for his solo career. If Jeff Hardy is going to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, he wants it to be with his brother.
I feel like that was on purpose so that WWE can right their wrongs with him.
Yeah.
But honestly, Jeff Hardy's like, no, fuck WWE, which is leading into a big, settlement thing where WWE wants to sue AEW because he, you know, blurted that he was going to AEW even though he's still technically signed with WWE, is on that no compete clause.
Yeah,
Yes,
and see,
but
that's
the thing is, he can say that he's going to AEW all he wants. But the thing is,
it's not contract tampering unless he puts pen to paper, in which Tony Khan is not that stupid.
he hasn't officially put pen to paper yet. So
You can
you
sue.
can take them to court all you want. You're not going to win because
No,
you have no evidence other than the fact that he's come out and said that he's doing it. There's no evidence that he even, there's no phone call out there with Tony
Tony Khan.
Khan,
Yeah,
which there could have very well been some contact in between that. But
but even then, I'm
what
sure
what
what it is that Jeff Hardy is like, hey man, I know I'm still on this non compete clause, but I'll let you know once it comes up so that we can make some negotiations, man.
Yeah, so don't be shocked with, March 9th that they say like, oh, some mystery guy or big announcement type thing. So we'll happen to see. As far as that, we did choose one where we had another prediction, right? Wardlow is now the face of the
Yeah,
Revolution. He
and
wins the ladder match.
he gets his TNT Championship opportunity at St. Patrick's Day Slam, where he will face the winner of Sammy Guevara versus Scorpio Sky.
Yes, and I'm hoping, praying that Um, Ricky Starks is okay. That
Oh yeah,
landing from the
man.
power bomb onto the ladder did not look very good. The doctors were in the ring and checking on him. I think
I think
he might have
re-injured that broken neck that he
he could
suffered
have
about a
honestly
year or
very
two
well
ago.
have injured himself after that power bomb. I'm hoping he's going to
Ricky,
be all
man,
right.
you gotta protect your neck.
Yes, yes, you do.
I mean, granted, I know it was a spot on a ladder,
But
and
can
there's
we
really
talk
not a
about
lot of.
some of those
But
moments in that ladder match
oh
with,
yeah,
you know, freaking
poor
Keith
Orange
Lee?
Cassidy.
Man, he flung Orange Cassidy out. What else was
I
in
don't
that
mean to use
match?
a I don't mean to use a term to sound like uh, Gen Z or whatever generation we're in now, but Keith Lee yeeted that man out of the ring.
Yes. Also, the cool moment where they held the ladder up and then he was like, "All right, I can grab it," and then falls through and hurts his balls. Um, that happened. Then Christian was trying to, they were had the ladder this way and he was trying to run up it. You going up to grab the brass ring. What else? There was a moment where, yes, Wardlow runs into and takes out Keith Lee and Powerhouse Hobbs to head them out of the match, which sucks because I thought Keith Lee and Powerhouse Hobbs could have had their whole moment there where they were beating the living crap out of each other, but that didn't happen. Um, Man, the Christian cage with a spear in the side there into the ladder. I tell you, it was a hell of a ladder match. But honestly, Wardlow, you deserve this. You really do. You worked your ass off. You know, if there's any man that deserves it, that has really up in the company as a solo, you know, wrestler, it's Wardlow, and I think they did it the right way. Um, I will say this now, Sammy. It was nice to see you as a TNT champion, but you are going to be losing it to Scorpio Sky. I think Scorpio Sky will be a transitional champion, where Wardlow, this is going to be weird as it is. You're going to have two different TNT champions in 2 different weeks. And Scorpio Sky win the TNT championship for a week, and then you're going to have Wardlow. Wardlow would make the most sense, like we talked on the show before, like we said earlier on episode 28, which it will be, which should, will be already out when this comes up, that we thought, Wardlow winning the TNT championship makes the most sense because now MGF, and Wardlow can, compete against each other. And after seeing what, of course, we'll talk about that a little bit later. So, question, will you be the new TNT champ soon? Yes, he will be the new TNT champion soon, and rightfully so. He deserves it. As far as what Sammy Guevara could do, I'm not too sure what will be next, but don't be shocked if it leads into a whole. Honestly, I think what I could see honestly happening is the Inner Circle versus Eddie Kingston and his group of guys. I don't know. We'll happen and see what happens with all that. I don't know exactly what's going to be the plan, but I honestly think that Inner Circle is going to be involved with Double or Nothing like they usually always are. So we'll have to see. But man, keep on going with the debuts. We got another one. Shane Swerve Strickland is already in. The rumors were true. He signs his contract with AEW.
Swerve is competent.
Now, question:
Whose house?
Swerve's house.
Whose house?
Swerve's house.
I love you too.
Now, question: what kind of impact will he have in AEW?
That's hard to say.
Because, it is really hard to say because there's just so much.
Just came in. There's a lot that you could potentially do with him. The man has uncapped potential in AEW.
Honestly, the thing is AEW has a lot of talent.
Yes.
And a lot of that talent is former WWE stars. So I feel bad for all the AEW originals because I feel like they're kind of, and they have every right to say, I think a lot of them are getting pushed out for the former WWE stars. But a lot of these guys that are former WWE stars were indie darlings. So,
yeah.
They're going to end up having better success in AEW than in WWE. So honestly, I really do think that,
especially Swerve, because
Shane Strickland will do amazing things in AEW.
He started out in the indies. He started out in companies like Defy Wrestling. He was even in Lucha Underground as Killshot.
Right.
So, there's many places that Swerve has been. Oh wow, we have light. There's many places that Swerve has been that he's had really good success before signing with WWE and being called Isaiah Swerve Scott.
Right.
So obviously he's keeping the Swerve name because that could never go away.
Right, exactly.
I'm sure they negotiated that before he ultimately signed. Well, I'm sure he signed that deal, but he's like, hey, if I'm gonna be here, I still gotta have my Swerve name.
Of course. So going forward in a match that, again, I really do think that should have been on the buy-in. Nothing against the women's wrestlers that are on the brand, but as far as that goes, Jade Cargill retains her title against Taye Kante.
Can I talk about that attire of Jade?
She wore the Jade outfit from Mortal Kombat.
which got a pop from me because, I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan.
And then Kante was wearing some war paint. She was ready to battle, but it just wasn't enough for her to beat Jade Cargill's
I knew it
undefeated
wasn't her
streak.
time to be the Taye BS champion.
Um, I'm gonna make this prediction now. I think Paige Van Zandt is gonna be the new, like, eventually will be an opponent for Jade Cargill. I think Jade Cargill will lose to Paige Van Zandt for the TBS championship. It just makes a lot of sense.
We did not see
Well,
an in-ring She probably signed it behind the scenes.
honestly, it could have very well been, but then again, I might have been.
It might have been on the buy-in.
It might have been. Yeah, it could have been on buy-in, and it could also have. It might be at Dynamite. Might have thought it was Red Revolution. Might be at Dynamite instead. We'll happen to see what happens with that. But man, going forward, man, we knew it was going to be bloody. We knew it was going to be brutal and intense. But man, in a match that I kind of knew that they were going to beat the living shit out of each other. CM Punk. Wow.
Who, by the way,
going old school on us a little bit.
Coming out to AFI, first of all, that was his theme song in Ring of Honor, but also throwing it back with an old attire from Ring of Honor, which, by the way, I've seen the comparison. He actually had that attire during his bleach blonde days of Ring of Honor, but I was seeing the picture, you could kind of see some fading in his bleach blonde, so it had to have been right before he decided to let it all go, like, black, essentially, or, like, whatever. I don't know. I didn't really know much about CM Punk and his, like, Ring of Honor days, but I do know that he's very synonymous for his Ring of Honor days.
Right.
And even then, his initial match in Ring of Honor against Samoa Joe got 5 stars. One of his only real 5-star matches that he's had, besides the one in WWE against John Cena and Money in the Bank. But regardless, CM Punk throwing it back was a nice little touch of nostalgia that we all loved.
Right, exactly.
There were even some fans in the crowd that were singing along to AFI, so everybody was on board CM Punk throwing it back.
Honestly, I will say that, CM Punk, there was some great, spots. I mean, there with getting the thumbtacks involved in the match, with the lashing of the chain to using it.
CM Punk had quite the welt on his back from the chain.
Yes, I will say. MJF really whipped it. I thought CM Punk definitely shows a little bit of his age, because I thought he was going to really, use that into MJF, but he just...
Well, I mean, of course, MJF sold the hell out of it, like he does a lot of things, but regardless, hey, it's all that Brian Myers Creative Pro.
We thought we were gonna see the Pepsi plunge again, but unfortunately it did not happen.
That would have really been a throwback to his Ring of Honor days.
I will say this too, the one spot on the freaking side of the apron, holy shit, CM Punk to MJF there. Or was it MJF to CM Punk? I can't remember, but man.
I'm trying to remember which spot on the apron you're talking about now.
Man, I tell you what, those two men are literally, brought the house down. That was a great match, and I knew it was going to be brutal. They said that MJF wasn't really bleeding for very, very long, because CM Punk really didn't singe it, but man, CM Punk was bleeding for a good moment before the blood started drying up. MJF was bleeding there.
The thing with Punk is the wound that
was already
it was reopened at Revolution.
It only took one hit.
Opened at
only
Dynamite.
One like that, and they already started bleeding again. So yes, CM Punk does get the match where we did predict it right, that CM Punk would get the victory at the pay-per-view. but with a shock. MJF was calling for Wardlow to come out.
Oh yes.
Wardlow's like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Max,
I don't have the ring, man.
I can't find the ring.
Next thing you know, after
Oh,
MJF had already been knocked down, reaches in the right pocket and he's like, "Oh, oops! It was in the right pocket the whole time.
It was right here." CM Punk uses the Dynamite Dozen ring.
Well, okay.
Punch.
Let's get it right. He dropped it off to Punk. He didn't.
Yes.
So, but let's just say that Wardlow finally turned on MJF.
We figured that it would happen sooner than later, that Wardlow would turn.
Ultimate payoff to Wardlow turning on MJF, the pay-per-view.
Yes.
Revolution.
Of course. It makes the most sense.
It set the perfect stage.
It would have made the most sense if he did have it, where he picks up and then gives them the, flips them off, and then, Wardlow, what the hell, man? You're supposed to work for me. Would have made a little bit more sense to lead into a future thing. MGF never saw Wardlow toss the ring into, or put the ring down to CM Punk. CM Punk puts it on, bashes him with a thing, goes through the thumbtacks, and pins him 1, 2, 3. Wardlow, or CM Punk, wins with the help of Wardlow, which is interesting. And we finally get to see that face turn for Wardlow, as it will, again, lead into MJF versus Wardlow. I think that MJF will eventually watch it and be like, "Hey, man, hey, big man. Where was the support, man?"
Well, now begs the question of what happens with Shawn Spears and Wardlow.
Oh, I think it's going to eventually start. I think you'll see a match between those men first before you'll see MJF and Wardlow.
Well, who's to say Shawn Spears won't try to talk some sense into Wardlow and try to get some reason out of him for what he did?
Yeah, but there's not much reasoning. There's not much reasoning that you're going to get out of Wardlow after all of that.
His actions are
justified.
He's
his own free man.
His actions are absolutely justified.
Well, how much are you going to think that, because since he's still working for MGF, if Wardlow does win it, I could see it be like, somehow it goes to MGF and then Wardlow is like, "That's not what I agreed to. I never worked for you. I never said I worked for you." So I can see it leading into MJF somehow being the TNT champion, and then Wardlow has to, fight the, get it back type of thing. But then again, we'll definitely happen to see. Going forward, in a shocking move, I will say this now, there was no title changes, which was interesting. But Britt Baker retains her AEW Women's World Championship against Thunder Rosa. But man, Thunder Rosa, she was bringing that energy. She really was against Britt Baker. I really did think that there was going to be some moments where Thunder Rosa was going to be the new champion, but fortunately she did not win. She lost to Britt Baker. But as weird as it is, Thunder Rosa will get another opportunity.
This time she better win.
At the AEW Women's World Championship, and she will have to beat now the number one contender, which I totally forgot who it is. I don't know if you remember who it is that she's going up against.
I'm pretty sure it's Layla Hirsch.
You might be right. I think she has to beat Layla Hirsch, which is very well possible. And I hope that after that it will lead into her actually beating Britt Baker, which I'm going to say this now, if everything that you've seen on there, if they really go with title changes on the main show, or on like Dynamite or Rampage, it makes you really beg to differ. Why didn't you just not do it at the pay-per-view to begin with? But hey,
kind of defeats the whole purpose of a pay-per-view then. If you're
it kind of does, but
gonna have title changes on Dynamite, and not that they're a bad thing. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you had these matches at the pay-per-view. Why did you decide not to have the titles change hands at the pay-per-view if you were just going to do it on like Dynamite and Rampage?
Right, exactly. So going forward, Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, man, what a hell of a back and forth match.
They bled together.
They did bleed together, but there is
So
some
now will they team together?
But there's some speculation that maybe that wasn't actually Danielson's blood in the first place. He was bleeding from the lip, but wasn't actually bleeding from the head. I think that's actually was from Moxley's blood.
But commentary did try and say that no, it was Danielson's blood.
So yes, they did bleed together, but now Moxley beats Danielson. But oh my God!
Nobody saw this coming.
I didn't see this coming. William Regal.
Get better security. William Regal
is now all elite. Will be on and off screen. It was made official that he will be on and off screen. I don't know what exactly he'll do off screen.
Who's to say he'll be a talent scout?
We'll see. But we do know that on screen he will at least be possibly the manager of Moxley and Danielson. And I hate to say it, all these tag teams, you better watch out because Danielson and Moxley is going to be one hell of a tag team to reckon with.
But who's to say off screen he's not going to reprise the role that he had initially in NXT as a talent scout?
I think, he could be a talent scout. It makes the most sense.
Who better to have for a talent scout than William freaking Regal?
Now that ROH is a thing, what if William Regal ends up being the general manager of ROH?
Well, no, unfortunately, Tony Khan is actually going to be the booker of Ring of Honor.
Is he?
But that would have been something if they chose Regal. But regardless...
I mean, he doesn't have to, per se, be the booker and still end up... I don't know.
That is true. You do have a point. That is true. He could actually be like the on-screen general manager for Ring of Honor.
Yeah,
like
that's
he
what I was
was
referring to.
And even then, it would essentially be the same kind of role that he had in WWE. He would be the on-screen general manager of the developmental brand. ROH essentially is looking like it's going to be the developmental brand for AEW. Who's to say William Regal couldn't be a great on-screen...
I want to know if that's what they mean by off-screen working in AEW, because it very well could be. He could very well be a talent scout for AEW and also the GM for ROH. So we'll happen to see what happens with that. But man, as far as on-screen, you better watch out with that tandem of all three of those men, because William Regal knows exactly what he's getting out of Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley.
Yes.
But having them together with being their manager.
Yeah. I will say this now. I am ready for whatever they decide to make William Regal's first official Shop AEW t-shirt.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, the man already has a pro wrestling tees store. Who's to say that he's going to get a future Shop AEW t-shirt?
Well, I will say, I know I crapped on this, Trios Tornado Tag Team match, but let me tell you something. It lived up to the hype. It did. There was some high spots in this match, and I'm not just talking about the Sting through the ladders from the rafters. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, the other few moments there where I'm trying to remember what else. There was another couple table spots and stuff like that. Oh
yeah, Sammy with that Spanish fly to Isaiah Cassidy through the table. He's fucking crazy, baby.
Yes, he is fucking crazy. Man, I tell you, the AHFO definitely needs a change around there. There were some moments. I mean, they were getting involved as much as possible. The Butcher and the Blade were getting involved in that match as much as they could have. But man, I tell you, I'm just saying, Sting and Darby and Sammy make one hell of a freaking trio. They were all freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Spanish fly for the Spanish God. We got to see a flying scorpion.
Yeah.
We got to see Darby being Darby. Um, the crazy freaking coffin splashes that he had there. I, I tell you, man, holy crap! But if there's anything that the highlight of that match was definitely Sting going through all those tables that were set up by the Butcher and the
Yeah.
Blade. Man, I tell you, I figured this match was gonna be, great, but man, it definitely set up to the hype. And I thought, Darby, Sammy, and Sting. I thought Darby and Sammy had that, disconnection, but they made it work.
Yeah.
They got through that tough TNT Championship triple threat match, but man, Sting, are you ageless or something? Because
He's gotta be.
you gotta be ageless. You are just not human at all.
No, that's PCO.
No, if there's anybody that's not human, it's freaking Luchasaurus, who ended up taking that crazy bump out in the ring and then got back up.
Of course he's not human. He's a dinosaur. He's 65 million years old.
That's very true. But unfortunately, we did
the oldest active competitor in the AEW, by the way.
Unfortunately, we didn't get to see all this match because by the time that we were really getting into it, the pay-per-view ended. But to kind of a big surprise, Adam Hangman Page retains with a buckshot lariat to Adam Cole to retain the AEW
Handing
World title.
Adam Cole his first official loss.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked about that because that might derail Adam Cole just a little bit, but I don't think by too much. But man, Adam Hangman Page, you're just looking.
So now it seems that the other Adam is actually Adam Cole, baby.
Yes, for right now, yes. And Adam Hangman Page vowed that this would be the one world heavyweight title he would not get, and so far that's kind of very truthful. That is one world title he is possibly not getting anytime soon.
Yeah.
As far as who could be next for Adam Hangman Page, I have no clue.
I would like to see it be Brian Cage.
It would be nice, but we'll definitely see what happens. I mean, as far as that goes. But honestly, everybody, this is going to conclude our pay-per-view special. As always, follow us down below at social media as you can find out about when we are doing pay-per-view specials and other episodes. Make sure to follow Tinkle Sports Entertainment for other channels like Out of Turn 4 every Tuesday at 5 and Sunday Morning Tinkle every Sunday at 9 a.m. We are No Final Bell, Jason and Marty, and we will see you in the next episode.